No, you're going to be YouTube famous, mate. You have to be. You're in the shop. It takes more than a bench chassis to keep us down. Here we are, we're just removing the front end of our old bent chassis and throwing it in the bin. And we've flipped it around and now we're cutting the back off. And say goodbye to the last of the old bent chassis. Out with the old. Alright, so that's pretty much it for today. The goal was to get the old chassis off of the suspension subframe, get everything ground up and stuff like that. I've done that now. Got to do a little bit more. I've just got to fill in some potholes from where I sort of got a bit ambitious with the plasma cutter and nick the tube a little bit here and there. So I'll just fill them up tomorrow and grind them back. I think the order of the day for tomorrow is going to be laying out the new chassis on a bench. And getting that all built nice and flat, and then we're going to plonk that onto the same suspension subframe. The new chassis is going to come out to the full width of the suspension subframe, which is something that I wasn't really happy about before with the old chassis anyway, so that's a good thing, bit of a win there. So yeah, I think it'll take me around about a day to build out the new chassis. Maybe two, probably closer to two. So that's the order of the day for the next couple of days, and we'll fill you in. See you next time. Well folks, it's an exciting day. Here's our pack of steel for the van. It's a week later. This is the exciting stuff. G'day everyone. So just about to cut a piece of steel, which is the same 125/75 4mm, to make the two halves of the drawbar. They're 1430mm long each. What I've done here is I've clamped a nice brand new straight piece of steel to the centre line of the trailer back here, and I've measured and marked the centre line and clamped it up there as well. that's how I can determine that I've got my drawbar centralised in the middle of the trailer. And then we're going to clamp some more bits of steel on top of these corners of the chassis in order to support the new pieces and work out the angles and get it all cut in. And here we're just cutting some caps out of 75 by 6 mil flat bar to cap the rear bar, otherwise we'll end up with an open bar. And here you can see we've added on the wings, which are the outermost section of the chassis which support the walls. They're all 75 by 50 by 3 mil, and so are the little stubs that go out to support the outer wing. And that's all the centre crossbars in, and in between the centre crossbars, just to stop the floor sagging and whatever, we've used some 50 by 2 mil. Building our mudguards, because our wall panel has to bear down on something not thin air. I'm just going to go with a bit of box tube. I'm using 50 by 3. It's just a 45-degree angle. I've measured the suspension so that the amount of travel available in the suspension, the top of the tyres will never hit the guards. And I've allowed a little bit of extra as well. So basically this 50mm beam carries the wall panels and the channel that they sit in, and then from there we'll just do sheet metal and we'll cap it in. It will be full welded so it's completely sealed. And I think I'm going to tuck down a little bit tighter at the back of the tyres and then just have a little flap there, because the less mudguard we can have protruding into both the kitchen cupboard and the underside of the booth seat, the better. So yeah, we'll be attaching the sheet metal to the underside of these tubes later on, but we'll just get everything tacked up and get it all nice and straight, eyeball it so it doesn't look funny with the wall sitting on it, and then we'll full weld it out from there. And here we're just grinding all the edges up with galvanised material. This is just electroplate galvanised 2mm sheet, but you do have to grind all the edges clean before you weld them, otherwise you will get big zinc blisters and horrible things in your welds. Here we're just applying a coating of etch primer.
Okay, so what do we do today?
Today we sort of finalised the design of the mud guards and the wall supports that span the mud guards. Because the mud guard frame basically supports the walls, it had to be reasonably strong. And because it lands on the side of a 50mm beam, it had to be 50mm. The other side's heaps easier because the other side doesn't have the step, so we can run it along like the back end of this one. And then yeah, just enclose it in sheet metal, got it all welded out, it's all fully sealed and primed. We needed something strong to support the wall plate, and we needed something completely sealed to make sure nothing gets in underneath, and I think we've done that today. It's basically taken us a whole day to close this wheel arch in, but that's alright. And now that it's in its true form, it's quite strong and very, very rigid. That, like I've repaired caravans so many times before where the manufacturer hasn't allowed enough room for the full articulation of the suspension, and then the tyres made contact with the usually shitty plywood wheel arch, and then it's basically destroyed their caravan when the suspension's articulated too much over a bush track or a corrugated road or whatever. So I've seen that too many times. So we've got the full articulation of the suspension plus about 25mm. So yeah, it's literally not possible for that tyre to hit that steel. Literally not possible. So that's a good feeling, knowing that we won't be redoing this. It's tough as hell. Nice big clearance between the tyre and the guard. That's pretty cool. And I've checked both in the 45 and the straightforward. Like, I've checked in every dimension that tyre will never hit that steel. As far as like a foreign object getting, flicked up there or something like that, well, you can't do too much about that, but it's 2mm galvanised steel. It's quite sturdy and solid, and I really don't think it'll be a problem.